Hello, my name is Robert P. I'm a grateful member of Nar-Anon. My topic for this presentation is Step 12, Carrying the Message. Step 12 says, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. There are many ways to practice Step 12. Some members focus their efforts on being sponsors. Some put time into starting and strengthening groups. I've done some of each, but my primary focus is to serve the fellowship by working on committees. In a 12-step program, we work together. When I work alone, then I am at risk of expressing my own opinion. When we work together, we have better access to our higher powers' guidance. Every group, area, region, and even the World Service needs volunteers to help with committees. Somewhere in Nar-Anon, there's a vacancy waiting for you. The primary way I serve Nar-Anon is through technology. I like working with computers. I like working together with others so we can use technology to build websites. I found opportunities to serve on several website and technology committees. Speaking from my own experiences, I will now explain how I blend the 12 steps with my committee work. I acknowledge that this is a bit unusual. Typically, committee work is linked to service, and is more relevant to traditions and concepts. But I want to share with you how working in Nar-Anon service helps my recovery. I'm going to do this by walking through the steps. In steps 1, 2, and 3, my focus is on powerlessness. In my experience, working with others gives me numerous opportunities to recognize my powerlessness, especially since the type of service I do includes working with bug-ridden technology. Technology can humble even the best. There are things it does and things you are never going to get it to do. Getting along with technology requires I admit I am powerless over things I cannot control. I also need to admit I am powerless over the expectations others project onto me. I cannot cure drug addiction. I cannot resurrect dead computers. And I know almost nothing about technologies I've never used before. For example, I did not have a Zoom account until social distancing started in 2020. So I'm still learning how to make the best use of Zoom. Working on a committee also means I'm working with others. We do not all agree. However, what we can try to do is recognize that none of us are in charge. All of us do service work as trusted servants. We serve the fellowship. We strive to follow the guidance expressed by the group conscience process. The group conscience of our committee, the group conscience of our fellowship, which we desire to be an expression of our higher power's will. I need to remember I am powerless. Fortunately, I know there's a power greater than myself, which can be expressed through the committee. In service work, we strive to follow guidance from our higher power. Step 4, I examine myself. Working on a committee puts my character defects on display right out front. I get frustrated, I build resentments. The difference between now and what it was like before I started working my steps is now I'm aware of my defects. Another key difference is our understanding of the goal. In business, the goal is typically to make money and simultaneously advance one's career. In Nar-Anon, we use service to attract newcomers and communicate with members. When the members of a committee disagree, we look to the Nar-Anon principles. Not everyone does this all the time, but it strengthens our team when we do, because that means we're all trying to put Nar-Anon first. It's also helpful knowing I have support from fellow committee members as I learn to live a different life. I can stumble, fall on my face, and my friends will be there to support me. We're all working to change our lives and all know how hard it is to do that. Within a committee, I also see others working their steps. I learn from watching them. I see my own character defects appear in others. Then I watch how they overcome their self-will and put their energy into service. In steps 5, 6, and 7, I admit my character defects and try to find a better way to live. Every time I work step 5, I share my step 4 list with my recovery sponsor. My recovery sponsor knows the steps, but is not that involved in service. Because of this, I also have a service sponsor. My service sponsor is deeply involved in service and understands me when I call. I call when I have questions. I also call when I get frustrated and need someone to bounce ideas off. My service sponsor helps me see what I am doing. Am I displaying a character defect? Am I failing to admit my powerlessness? Am I staying on my side of the street? Working my program does not end conflict, but my program gives me tools for responding to what life sends my way. For example, I found myself in conflict with another member regarding the size of font to use on a website. I know my character defects, and I know I can be stubborn. I talked with my service sponsor to discuss how to approach the situation. I tried being amiable. I tried being flexible. I tried just agreeing with whatever the other committee member wanted. But even when I surrendered, the conflict continued. After a while, I came to believe the only way I could retain my serenity was to quit. I quit my service position because the conflict with this other person was not good for my recovery. I was able to calmly walk away from a service I love because of this program. I know my character defects and I know my boundaries. When I'm staying on my side of the street, staying within my hula hoop, and yet still in conflict, then I need to leave. Steps 5, 6, and 7 help me set boundaries so I do not trigger my character defects. Continuing through the steps, I practice steps 8, 9, 10, and 11 in my daily life. I also find many opportunities for amends when I'm working on committees. We have misunderstandings and disagreements. We think we know what a website change will look like. We're disappointed when it's not what we expected. Just because we're all working on our recovery does not make us devils or angels. Website work gives me opportunities to practice step 10 and promptly amend. This gives me practice for dealing with the world outside our program. Apologizing to someone inside our fellowship is a lot easier than with someone outside. Those of us inside this fellowship already know we are powerless. We're all in this together. We're all working toward humility. In this, I'm striving to balance conflicting goals. In the outside world, when there's conflict, I typically choose fight or flight. Either I battle with the other person to prove I am right and get my way, or I isolate and avoid angry people. Nar-Anon is different. Tradition 12 reminds us to place principles above personalities. When we have conflict within Nar-Anon, we are challenged to work together to find guidance from our higher power. Sometimes this does not work, and I've chosen flight. Sometimes it's our principles which are being threatened, and I've chosen to fight for our principles. But how we fight in Nar-Anon is supposed to be a polite debate, not a death match. We debate in Nar-Anon using Nar-Anon service tools. Knights of the Round Table debated with the tools they knew, swords and jousting poles. Lawyers fight with the tools they know, subpoenas, depositions, and court cases. The tools we have available within Nar-Anon are the Nar-Anon principles, a group conscience, a subcommittee, and a group inventory. The Nar-Anon principles are the 12 steps, the 12 traditions, and the 12 concepts of service. The steps guide my personal life. The traditions help us work together in groups and also apply to committees. The concepts are the best guidance we have for service work. The step I am focusing on in this presentation is step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. The traditions I most frequently reference in service work are Tradition 1, Unity. Tradition 2, Group Conscience in order to discern higher powers' guidance. Tradition 5, our one purpose is to help the families of addicts. Note, most programs talk about their primary purpose. Our tradition says we have one purpose. Also, Tradition 4. This tradition with 2 parts and dozens of interpretations Tradition 4 requires we constantly readjust our balance so as not to fall on one side or the other of this teeter-totter. The concepts I most frequently reference in service work are: Concept 2, decisions are made by the groups. Concept 4, leadership qualities should be carefully assessed. We should not just vote for a warm body just to fill a service position. Sometimes it's better to leave the position unfilled, rather than ask someone to do service they're not prepared to do. Concept 6, group conscience in order to discern higher powers' guidance. Concept 7, Nar-Anon is an organization of equals. Concept 9, since we are all equals, then all opinions are welcome to be heard. To me, however, the concept I think is most essential is Concept 8. It does no good to have a wonderful discussion and make wise decisions if we do not communicate the opportunity for input, or if we fail to communicate our plans. One of the service tools I mentioned earlier is a group conscience. A group conscience is not an election. Nar-Anon is based on the equality of all members. We will not have a successful group conscience if the vote is 5-4, or even 79-1. We have a group conscience when everyone agrees to proceed. Some might agree because they like the idea. Some might agree to proceed even though they have doubts. There are legendary stories, however, of groups that delayed actions for many years, waiting until every member agreed to support the group. The third Nar-Anon service tool is committees. Committees come in many flavors. There are committees, subcommittees, ad hoc committees, working groups. For example, a region can form a regional service committee. This is a committee because it is the primary form of organization for the region. A regional service committee is also known as an RSC. An RSC can then form subcommittees for things like conventions or websites. Those are subcommittees because they do their work for the RSC. An ad hoc committee is a temporary committee. Some regions form an ad hoc committee to search for volunteers when they want to fill service positions. Some regions form an ad hoc committee to create a yearly budget. Those committees then disband when their work is done, so they are temporary. Sometimes members work together to investigate a special problem. For example, a region might ask several members to work together to compare website services. Their work might not be organized. After all, we strive to only be as organized as necessary. The fourth Nar-Anon service tool is a group inventory. You can go to the Nar-Anon World Service website, look on the service literature page, and download the Nar-Anon Group Inventory form. I recommend giving every member of the group a copy of the form, and then give them time to think about it for a week or two. Next, hold a group conscience business meeting and discuss the results. This can help identify areas for improvement. It can also help members center their focus onto the group. Step 12 calls for me to carry the message. I, as an individual, can share my recovery with those I meet. I can share about my recovery in Nar-Anon meetings and in Nar-Anon service. In doing so, I focus on the Nar-Anon principles and use the Nar-Anon service tools. As for me, I practice step 12 when I work on websites. Service work on websites is one of the primary ways I strive to share our message. Websites communicate with the members. Websites attract newcomers. Looking at the variety of Nar-Anon websites helps me to see the worldwide reach. No one of us can carry the message to everyone. When we work together, we are more effective. We work through the service structure and use the Nar-Anon tools. We kept our focus on the Nar-Anon message. One thing that puzzles me is why more members don't use these opportunities. There are thousands of members worldwide, but only 50 on World Service committees. There's a great need with too few carrying the load. I began doing service work when I joined Nar-Anon because those commitments gave me a reason to keep coming back when I was still new. Later, I got involved in regional work as a GSR. Regions have so many responsibilities and yet so few workers. Most of my experiences were pleasant, but not all. I've run into conflicts. I found some of my service commitments were getting in the way of my recovery. I am in Nar-Anon because I need the recovery this program offers. My recovery comes first. I dropped some of my service commitments when they were getting in the way of my recovery. But then I picked up other commitments instead. I need these commitments because my recovery is not complete without service work. Also, every service commitment I take gives me a greater understanding of Nar-Anon. If you really want to understand Nar-Anon, please join a World Service Committee. You have lots of opportunities to practice the traditions and the concepts of service. You also get a wonderfully nurturing place to continue working on your personal recovery with friends who are doing the same. I'm next going to illustrate this process by describing a service opportunity using the 12 steps. Step 1, powerless. There was an update our committee wanted to make to our website. We could not make the update because it required more time and effort than we could bring together. We studied, discussed, and brainstormed, but we were powerless to make the change we wanted to make. Step 2, believe. We believed it was necessary to make a change. We believed we were powerless to make the change we wanted. We also believed, however, there was some other way to move forward. Step 3, decide. We decided to trust our higher power to help us find a solution. We ended our meeting, and each of us thought, prayed, and meditated. After a few weeks, we found an alternative way to display the information. We could not try to force the technology to do what it could not do. We did not ask other members to make an exorbitant effort. We simply waited for an alternative solution to become obvious. Step 4, inventory. We discussed and identified a few shared character defects. Control. We wanted to change the website immediately, but it was not up to us alone to make those decisions. Expectations. We were frustrated that others did not see things the way we did. Self-importance. We acted like our own little decisions were far more important than they really were. Step 5, reveal. The nice thing about working on a committee is we can talk amongst ourselves. Thus, as I described my concerns about the urgency I felt, others agreed they also felt the same. Then, as we together assessed what our role really was, we gained a greater perspective of what our place in the fellowship meant for us. Step 6, be ready. We accepted that what we felt was the right thing to do was not going to happen. Step 7, humbly. We then documented an alternative way to update the website, and we humbly asked for permission to make those changes. Step 8, willing. Step 8 is about my behaviors. I might be part of the committee. The entire committee might decide to do something. Ultimately, however, it is my responsibility to account for my own decisions. Step 9, amend. I talked with my service sponsor. Since the harm I created was confined to thinking about what I wanted others to do, I made amends by recommitting myself to humility. Step 10, daily. I'm committed to a daily search for humility. Step 11, seeking. I grow in my recovery when I find higher power's will rather than rushing about trying to do things my way. Step 12, message. And that is why I created this video. I created this video to carry the message about humbly serving by working on a committee as part of my recovery. What I find to be vital in my recovery is continuously seeking my higher power's guidance. What I find vital in committee work is a collective effort to find our higher power's guidance through the group conscience process. If you do not yet have a service position, there are plenty of opportunities. You can start by doing service work within your group. And if you're already doing service work, then please think about joining regional service. If you're interested, there are plenty of opportunities in world service. In summary, the steps are a way to live life while dealing with reality. Working on Nar-Anon websites gives me opportunities to practice my steps. Working on a committee also reminds me that I am as powerless to change other members as I am to change my addicted loved one. My character defects show up even in service work. But the safety of being with fellow Nar-Anon members gives me a safe place to work on myself. I'd now like to close with the we version of the Serenity Prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept what we cannot change, courage to change what we can, and the wisdom to know the difference.